All right, thank you so much for joining me. This is Gurpal Singh from Gursur Education, and this video lecture is going to be the new lecture under the series of video lectures for business environment and international business. Today, we are going to talk about a very important topic, and this is the extension of the previous lectures, obviously, and this is going to be relating to BOP, that stands for balance of a payment. So you would have got the idea, because I hope that you would have gone through from this topic in your undergraduation and post graduation as well. Okay, but still we have to cover because this specifically has been written in our syllabus. So in this video lecture, I am going to talk about the different kinds of the accounts involved in balance of payment. First of all, we shall be talking about balance of payment, its a structure, and what do we mean by that, why it is important to study regarding balance of payment. After that, we shall be talking about a current account and a capital account, which are the part of balance of payment. And finally, in this video lecture, we shall be talking about balance of payment disequilibrium. What are different kinds of disequilibrium of balance of payment? So these things we are going to discuss in detail. I hope you would enjoy, and this is very interesting, very beautiful, and very important lecture as well. All the things like capital account, current account, and the balance of payment disequilibrium as well. We have experienced that these have been already asked in the examination once or thrice. So I hope you'd enjoy this. Okay, now I'm just going to share the screen. Hope you'd enjoy this and just see and enjoy. All right, so I think everything is visible to you right now. This is going to be regarding balance of payment, and this is the next portion. Recently, we have covered topics regarding business environment and international business, and I have already taught you regarding theoretical frameworks behind the existence of today's well-structured international trade. I have already taught everything about that. And I have taught you that international trade happens in two ways. First of all, there are imports, and secondly, there are exports, import and exports of goods and services. Then this is very obvious that if you are importing the goods and services from outside the boundaries of our country, then you have to pay them, because importing simply means purchasing the goods and services, and you have to pay not in your domestic currency but foreign currency. Okay, you have to use the foreign currency for payment. And then obviously if you are exporting the goods and services, then you shall receive the money, and you shall receive the money in your domestic currency, because the purchaser shall have to purchase the foreign exchanges in the denomination of Indian rupee, and he shall pay you afterward. So you can just think yourself as a shopkeeper, okay, or you can think the government of any country like a shopkeeper. Okay, they indulge into trade, and they purchase the goods and they just sell the goods. Purchasing stands for importing, and sales stands for exporting of goods and services. So in this way, you can simply say that each and every shopkeeper maintains his accounts, he maintains his account books. Okay, these are very necessary, because you have to keep all the records of your purchases and sales on the regular basis. So what you have to do, you just keep the record of all the transactions you have made within a specific time frame. If you are just a shopkeeper, then it would be much more than sufficient that if you keep the ledgers account with you. Okay, if you just maintain your books of accounts, then that would be sufficient, that would be more than sufficient for you. But in case when you are not the shopkeeper, if we take into consideration the government into the picture, then what happens for the trade which is happening outside the boundaries of our country, like import and export? For that, a separate account is to be made, which can include the details of all receipts and payment, and that account is known as balance of payment. Now I hope you would have got the idea regarding what the balance of payment is. So this is the complete structure of keeping the accounting record of all the receipts and payments made to and received from the countries outside our country. So this is just a complete record of everything, whatever we have received, whatever we have paid to other countries. Okay, it has two parts that we will be talking about afterwards. So the country's balance of payment is defined as the summary of all its economic transactions that have taken place between its resident and resident of other countries, because you have imported, you have exported. So all these transactions shall go to a separate account made by the government, and that is known as balance of payment. Okay, so this is balance of payment. So balance of payment may be surplus, may be positive, or it may be deficit or negative. Okay, so just take example of a shopkeeper. I have given you this example so many times. Okay, if your sales are greater than your purchases, obviously you are in the position of gains. You are in the position of gains. In the similar way, if the country's exports are greater than its imports, then the country is said to be in favorable situation or in a surplus situation, or the balance of payment is positive. And in the same way, if a shopkeeper's purchases are greater than his sales, then he is in the position of losses or a deficit. And in the same way, taking the context of international figures, if imports are greater than your exports, then you are at the situation of losses or unfavorable situation. So we can simply say that a deficit balance of payment implies excess of imports over exports. And in the same way, surplus I have already talked about. Okay, surplus when your exports are greater than imports. So this is surplus and deficit balance of payment. That were basic two situations which can happen in context of balance of payment. Now these are more sufficiently, these are known as the two kind of basic classifications. These are favorable and unfavorable. Favorable simply means when you are at the situation of gains. Okay, so you can see here. Okay, when your exports are greater than your imports. Okay, so this is a favorable balance of payment in which a country earn gains, or it is having a positive balance with them. Okay, so this happens only if your exports are, you can see here the sign of greater than. If your exports are greater than your imports, and doesn't matter whatever the types of imports are, these can be goods, these can be services, these can be capital transfer or anything. In the same way, the unfavorable balance of payment is the situation in which exports are lesser than. You can see here the sign of lesser than. When your exports are lesser than your imports, into a layman's information, to a layman's term, we can simply say when your purchases are greater than your sales, then this is the unfavorable situation for you. And in the context of our nation, this is the unfavorable balance of payment situation. So these are the two things. Okay, so now we move further. I'm going to teach you what are the different types of, or how the balance of payment can be bifurcated. So I hope you have got the idea of what the balance of payment is. This is just the accounting record of all the receipt and payments from or to the other countries in the world. Okay, so balance of payment is bifurcated into two parts. The first is a current account and the second one is a capital account. Okay, so these are two bifurcations. I'm going to teach all these in detail. Okay, so first we shall talk about a current account. So this is the statement of actual receipt and payment in short period only, in short period, usually for 1 year, usually for the current fiscal year. I hope you understand that point. Okay, so it includes import and export of both material goods and services. Item of a current account are actually transacted. These are actually transacted. Okay, like actual receipt is recorded and actual payment is also recorded. Okay, so balance of payment on a current account is equal to visible plus invisible exports minus visible plus invisible imports. So just going to teach you what are the items of a current account. I hope by going through this specific table you would have got you would get the best idea. This has also been given in the notes which we shall deliver to you after this lecture. So there are two sides. Okay, obviously being the students of management or commerce, you would be able to understand these two sides. This side is debit side, this is credit side. Debit side is payment side, this is receipt side. You can just think about as a profit and loss account. So this includes payment, includes import of goods, import of services, foreign exports from foreign companies, income to income to foreigners from investment made by you. Okay, then gifts and donation given, government expenditure in a foreign country, payment to domestic use. So all these things you are not supposed to cram all these things, but just go through from one or two times so that these are stored somewhere in your subconscious mind, so that you can easily differentiate whether a specific item is the item of a current account or capital account. And if we talk about the receipt side, we can receive the money from exporting of goods, then exporting of services, income from foreign investment like interest income, after that gift and donations. Okay, income from foreign government expenditure in our country, then a receipt from transportation services like foreigners comes here, then mixed expenditure, then expenditure by foreign tourists in our country. So all these things are recorded in current account. So I hope you have got the idea. These are short term of nature, and the actual payment made and payment received are recorded in this account. So now we are going to talk about a capital account. What does it include? It includes the capital receipts. Okay, capital which are of long term nature and which are materialistic as well. I'm going to tell you what are these. Okay, all type of short term and long term international capital transfers, movement of gold, billion metals, receipt and payment of private and government accounts, institutional, private loans, interest, profit, grants. All these things are the part of capital accounts. Hope you have got the idea. Okay, these are not the regular transfer, but these are major transfers which include the payment for a time span longer than the short period. So as the capital account is concerned with the financial transfer, so they have no direct effect on income, output, and employment of the economy. So you can simply take a look on the items covered in the capital account. Okay, so these are again divided into two portions. Okay, so this is a T format. This is debit side, payment side, credit side, receipt side. Again, I just suggest you not to cram all the things, but you must understand these from by at least 3 or 4 readings, so that these are stored somewhere. You must be able to differentiate between the items of the current account and the capital account. If you can differentiate these two, then you don't need to remember all these tables included in this video lecture. The first payment can be capital payment, then outflow of banking capital, reserves and gold transfer payments, repayment of actual loans, repayment of private loans, payment of domestic use, foreign transportation, purchase of gold. So you can see that all these things are of a long-term nature, and these include the amount which is sufficiently large enough to be differentiated with the current accounts. And if we talk about receipt side, this is capital receipt, inflow of banking capital, reserve monetary gold inflow, loan received by government, income from foreign government expenditure, foreign private loans, international sale of goods. So all these things are included in the portion of the capital account of any government. So I hope you have got the idea. Okay, so if I move further, then the next topic is going to be regarding disequilibrium. And intentionally, we have included this specific topic in this video lecture. Otherwise, some authors or some People, students do not suggest this to go through, but I must tell you, this is much more than required. Okay, so this is very important topic. Not just one time, 2 or 3 times we have experienced that the question from the disequilibrium of a balance of payment has been asked. So when we talk about the disequilibrium, that simply means when you are at the situation of losses, and when you are at the situation of losses, when your exports are lesser than your import, this is very obvious. Okay, so sometime you are at the position that you are not earning money from your international trade, but rather you are losing money, but still you have to indulge into the international trade due to the pressure of international monetary authorities, because you have the membership of those institutions. So the disequilibrium in balance of payment is the situation when this is not at the equilibrium level. Okay, so what is the equilibrium level? Equilibrium level is simply the level when your exports are is equal to imports. The situation when you are in neither earning any kind of gain or you are losing any kind of income. Neither gains are there nor losses are there. So at that situation, this is the equilibrium situation. Or the situation of gains sometime also considered to be of equilibrium, because everyone wishes to gain from international trade. Every country wishes that their exports should be greater than their imports, only then they shall be in a position to earn much of the foreign reserves. But the countries, usually the developed nations like India, the developing countries like India, they are usually always at the situation of disequilibrium in the balance of payment. What is this situation? In this situation, imports are greater than exports, or if this is not the case, they are already at a disequilibrium level, they are already at a position of losses when they are not able to recover the total investment made. Okay, so this is the disequilibrium situation of balance of payment, and this is categorized into five major types for a disequilibrium. Okay, there are five major types of balance of payment disequilibrium. I must tell you that you must have the knowledge of each and individual item of disequilibrium in the balance of payment. So the first is a cyclical disequilibrium. This is caused by trade cycle only. Trade cycle only. Okay. Sometime you are import in a certain time period, in a certain year, your imports can be much greater than export. Okay, and in the next year your exports can be greater than import, and in the third year again this first can be the case that your imports are greater than export. At that kind of situation, this situation is known as a trade cycle. And this is very obvious that if your net income, if your net position is that your imports are greater than your export, that you are at a disequilibrium position. This situation is known as a cyclical disequilibrium. So if we read that, disequilibrium caused by trade cycle is called cyclical disequilibrium. Terms of trade and growth of trade undergo changes as a result of a trade cycle. Consequently, balance of payment is influenced. So this can be corrected by two measures: import and export adjustment. You must always be willing, you must always be pushing your exports. So this is how it can be amended. The next kind of equilibrium, a disequilibrium, is secular disequilibrium. Okay, so when an economy undergoes intensive changes, it causes secular or long-term equilibrium. So this is also known as a long-term disequilibrium. Do you remember the new economic policy of 1992? Before that, we had so many economic issues in our country because we were not opened to the world around us. Okay, so that's at that situation we were facing this secular disequilibrium. We did not have the sufficient foreign reserve to make the payment for our imports. So we undergo for intensive changes. We made so many laws. Okay, so many laws were amended, new stock exchanges were opened. Okay, so the disequilibrium which is long term, which happens for the reason that an economy is undergoing intensive changes. So that kind of disequilibrium is known as a secular disequilibrium. The third one is structural disequilibrium. Okay, structural, when some of the sectors of the economy uh, are are going are undergoing some changes. Like for example, you can take the example, Ford company has decided that they shall not manufacture their products or their cars or whatever they were making. They shall stop their manufacturing plants in India. So yesterday I was reading the news, this news, and it gave the knowledge that there are huge losses because more than 4,000 dealers were attached with that specific company. That was and they employed more than 40,000 employees. So now you can just imagine that if that kind of situation happen in one sector, if there are huge losses, then it ultimately disbalances the balance of a payment of the country. Okay, now some kind of laws are being demanded. Okay, like a Franchisee Protection Act. This act is nowadays being demanded by the dealers association, so that they feel themselves safe if any of the foreign company do these kind of things what Ford have done right now. So when structural changes take place in some sector of the economy, this then the affect import export trade-off, resulting into structural disequilibrium. So this is that. So the next one is fundamental disequilibrium. When you are opening up, okay, when you are opening up new, when a country already is suffering for so many years, so many past years, like you can take the take the example of independence of some countries. When they got independent, they did not have any kind of resources, they did not have any kind to offer to the populace of other countries. So when any country suffers very old and chronic disequilibrium in balance of payment, according to IMF, this is known as fundamental disequilibrium, which is initially there. And the last one is a temporary disequilibrium. This is just a temporary disequilibrium. Okay, like what happens, you were importing and exporting in a very good way, you were exporting your crops to other countries, and you were earning much of the foreign reserves. But what happened in a specific year, on a specific time frame, flood came and your crops completely washed away. So this is why you could not export the crops to for a particular period, and ultimately it caused the disequilibrium in the balance of payment of the country. So when crops are washed away by flood in a certain region in India, to make good the loss of the country, a country is forced to import grains, and this ultimately make the disequilibrium. This sort of disequilibrium is called temporary or short-term disequilibrium. So I think you have got the complete knowledge of what is required from our exams point of view. Otherwise, this all these topics, whatever we study, these are very large of nature. So this is, I think, and this is much more than a required. So what we have to do, what we have to understand in that, we have already gone through. So that was regarding balance of payment. So we have decided to take some more lectures for today, so that we can cover the syllabus at least for next 4 or 5 days. Okay, so if the next lecture is taken right now, then we shall be informing you for sure. Thank you so much. This is Gurpal Singh from Gurpal Education.